put all of that together and to help our families continue to push forward in what we know is the very best education that we could give our kids. I have no doubt about it. I have 2 adults living and breathing this, and they attribute so very much to this school and to this amazing person, Ellen Schuknecht.
I like to walk, so I have to take that off. So today we are going to do a session. It's going to be interactive and fun, I promise you, on 8 Great Smarts. But before we do that, I do want to tie it back a little bit to family ministry and what we do. And just to remind you that as a school, and for those of you who don't know me, I know we have some new people. I was here at the very start, and I can't believe I'm still here. At that point, I was going to be here for 2 years. Now I say it's kind of like forever. But through that course, it's been really, really fun to see our school stick to major values that we've never changed. And our school is built on 5 pillars: classical, Christian, a parent partnership school, family ministry, and we're also a resource school. And the family ministry component is something that I want to briefly explain to you before we get started today. And one of that is that we have, through the years, developed a set of core values for the family, and I put a copy of that at your table. I'm not going to go over that today, but I want you as faculty to know what our training to parents centers around. It's not just kind of loosey-goosey, what comes around in the media and whatnot. We try to stick to core values, and I just want to bring your attention to super briefly what these are. You can read this document on your own, but it's basically that Jesus Christ is the anchor of our soul, that everything we do in our school is to train our parents also to proclaim the gospel as a source of light and life to our kids in everything that we do. And that out of that, we're to love God and allow his love to flow to others. And really today, I'm going to focus on, I'm going to show you how what we're talking about today ties to one of these core values, because we believe in family ministry, and that's Christy Wilson and Molly Ingram and myself, that our training has to be focused on something we're trying to accomplish. And we believe these core values accomplish a type of culture in a home that fosters faith and growth. And so it's all based on this. So I think it'd be really great for you to be able to read that. But our core value 4 is focusing on practice that reach and influence the hearts of our kids, rather than settling for behavior management approaches. And in that, we need to know who our kids are, and we need to encourage our parents to understand their kids for their uniqueness and how God has created them, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I wanted to tie that back to the core values and make sure you guys had a copy so you kind of know we do have intentionality, we do have a focus on what we're trying to develop with our parents. And this year, we did this. We've been working a lot on understanding and discovering your child's unique strengths. And so we did that this fall, and it was really impacting for our parents. We did it through Parent Hour, but largely we do it through Facebook Live events on Monday mornings. And you are welcome. We have Facebook Live every Monday for our parents. By the end of the week, it has 150 to 200 views. You're welcome as faculty to check on that too, but it's 20-minute talks on these topics that we feel are vital for our parents to hear. So that's how we've been able to reach back into our homes, is through Facebook Live. And then our mentoring with our parents focuses on that too. But at the very top, before we dive into this book, I'm glad I see you sitting kind of by people that you teach with, because they're going to be having some discussions today intermixed into this talk. I want to just remind you also of another thing that this is grounded in, and that is the 5 basic needs of all of us and our kids. And I just want to look, if you can see, security is at the bottom. I'm going to start there. Who can I trust? Kids need to be able to place their trust in the Lord, and we need to point them there, because without that, everything else falls apart. It's not what, it's who. And to get them to trust God and to know that they can trust their parents, trust those of us here at the school, that is huge for them. When the need for security isn't met, everything else tumbles down. And that's why we focused a lot this year on teaching our parents these 5 needs. Right above that is identity. Who am I? How do I define and describe myself controls my behavior. Our kids need to see themselves in light of the gospel and who God has created them to be. And that identity is key for them, particularly in this culture today. We're not going to spend much time on this. We spent a lot of time on this with our parents this fall, though. 3 is belonging. Who wants me? 4 is purpose. Why am I alive? Tell our parents that God created everyone on purpose, for purpose, with purpose. And that's really, really key for our kids to know that. And finally, what we're going to talk about today, what do I do well? We're going to examine this from the light of the book by Dr. Kathy Cook called 8 Great Smarts. I really encourage, if you haven't read that book, to read it. I know Starla read it in her time recently over the break, and it's just really a great book, and that's what we're going to be talking about today. So I'm going to give you a little introduction into this book, that I'm going to talk about these 8 great smarts, and after every 2, I'm going to give you a chance to think about them, apply them to yourself, apply them, if you have a spouse or children, apply them to them, and also be thinking about the students in your class and which ones stand out. Because at the end of this session today, we're going to look at how we can nurture all of these smarts and how we can also support our kids differently based on the smarts that are their main smarts. I'm on the back of your sheet, you have a little paper, and on it, Kathy Cook recommends that you try to find 4 leading smarts. And her point is that you should nurture all these smarts, but you're going to lead with some. And to understand which smarts lead you in your growth is important for not only yourself, but for you, your children, and your students. Kathy Cook talks about teaching kids to lead with their strengths and not let their weaknesses win. And she promotes the idea that you talk to your kids about the strengths that they have, and you talk to them about how God has uniquely created them, and that they see how they are. And Kathy's 8 smarts are based on Gardner's multiple intelligences, which I'm sure you're aware of, that was published in 1983, and further developed by Dr. Tom Armstrong. So that's what they're based on, is those multiple intelligences. But when kids see how uniquely smart they are, they come to see their purpose more and recognize and grow their own competencies. But on the reverse side, kids stop using their smarts when they believe their smart is causing a critical reaction. We're going to talk about that a lot more. But a couple examples. Movement is huge for body smart kids, but they're constantly just told to sit still. You're kind of paralyzing the way they learn. Talking for the word smart kid, or exploring for the logic smart kid. And we're going to go into those today. But I want to just make the point that students learn, remember, perform, and understand in different ways. And I'm hoping today through this, you as faculty can see how you can maybe nurture these smarts and meet the needs of kids in your classroom in different ways. Again, you want to nurture all, but identify a top 4. So be thinking about yourself in this too. This is really kind of a fun one. And remember, I'm going to read this quote from her book. She says, intelligence can be awakened, improved, strengthened, focused, and trained, or it can be paralyzed by draining encounters that shut them down. And one of the things that's so most important for parents to know, and for even you as faculty, is that your relationship will be strongest when you take the child's skills and interests seriously, because their intelligence in these areas really starts with interest. You're going to see that by what they're interested in. The way kids are smart influences what they respond to emotionally and how they process emotions, so we're going to be looking at that side of it too. One of the things I love about our school is that we offer a variety of activities. We promote exposure to art and theater and music and speech and all these things, and athletics. And that's so important, and we need to continue to promote that with our parents. Just because a child isn't interested in an area and doesn't have skill doesn't mean that they don't benefit, because a well-rounded child should have all of these smarts developed to some degree, even though they will lead with some. So we're going to start now with I'm going to start with the first 2, and then we're going to take a chance for you to discuss at the table. I want you to be thinking about yourself, your own family, and your students. And if you see yourself in one of these smarts, you can use that chart on the back, and you can say, okay, that's one of my smarts, okay? Be thinking about also maybe smarts that for you, maybe you were paralyzed as a child because you didn't have the exposure or the chance to develop them. I've seen that in my own life and thought of many ways, interests that I have that were never really nurtured, that I think maybe I'll start to do that now. Huh? But anyway, Word Smart is the first one. Oh, by the way, I'm going to use examples from my own family because that's what I do. So I have pictures. All I have is pictures for you today. I'm just going to chat at you. But I'm using pictures of my own family. This is Peter, and Bethlehem is youngest. Bethlehem is 4. She's in pre-K. Some of you guys know her. Bethlehem is Word Smart. She talks to think. She thinks with words, and when she gets excited, she's going to talk. A Word Smart kid's going to talk or write or do something. Bethlehem will talk during play. She will talk in the back of the seat. She will talk when she's doing everything. She talks from morning to night. She said to us a few months ago, if I can't talk, I can't breathe. That's what she said. She also told me once that her battery ran out when she couldn't talk anymore. So Word Smart kids, if a child's one of their top 4 isn't Word Smart, school is going to be more challenging for them, and they can actually kind of start to feel quite numb. And I think of Alma, who is in 1st grade. She's one of Bethlehem's older sisters. Bethlehem has 3 siblings. And Alma's top strength would not be Word Smart. We're nurturing it in her because it's critical for her, but for Alma, learning to read is harder than a Word Smart kid. We have to give her more support. I do more partner reading with her. I know for her I need to develop this smart, but it's not a natural bent for her, okay? So it doesn't mean she doesn't learn it, but I know that her 1st grade teacher knows too. Reading is harder for Alma to learn. She's getting there, but partner reading and hearing words and nurturing this and being aware of that as a smart she needs to grow, but it's not going to be her leading smart, okay? When you relate to Word Smart kids, as they get older in particular, you want to prioritize the sharing of knowledge. You want to be available for them when they're thinking out loud, okay? I'm Word Smart. I need people to hear me think, okay? Drives my husband crazy sometimes. We'll talk about that later. But Word Smart people need to process out loud. Spiritually, they're the ones you want to have them read the scripture out loud, involve them in the family devotions. They love the names of God and vocabulary. Discipleship-wise, they're prone to monopolizing conversations. And they need to learn that too much of a good thing is not a good thing. Just because someone's Word Smart doesn't mean they get to talk all the time. They need to learn that balance. In their teen years, they're going to be more prone to gossip and teasing and arguing, and they're going to want the last word. They have a hard time listening. But a Word Smart is a really strong school skill. Can you see why? Because of reading and writing and expressing, okay? Moving on to the second one before we have a little discussion on these is Logic Smart. A Logic Smart person is going to think with questions. They're going to either ask questions or quietly think with questions. They want to know why. That is Alma. Alma isn't Word Smart, but she's very Logic Smart. They're going to push the rules if they don't understand them. They want to know why rules work. If things are worth thinking about, they want to make sense of them and have their questions genuinely answered. Why not run in a restaurant? Why are you serving tacos for dinner? Why do you have this rule in the classroom? They really want to know why they can't step over a line. They need more clarification. They don't like to be confused. So here's what happens as adults. I think, I talk to think, Glenn asks questions to think. So our conversations until we figured this out was me talking and him stopping and asking me all these questions along the way and interrupting me and feeling like I was being interrogated, okay? So the Logic Smart person wants to interrogate because they're asking questions. And I had to understand that Glenn wasn't really just interrogating me or trying to interrupt. He had questions, but he needs to understand that I haven't even gotten to the end of my thought till I'm done talking, so please don't interrupt in the middle and think that's where I'm going, right? So it's interesting when you put these together as adults and you start to understand how we talk. But the logic smart person, as they're older, can be better at analyzing people than loving them. And if you're a logic smart adult, don't know that kids don't want to be analyzed. It makes them feel like they're a project to be finished or a problem to solve. And they're going to stop sharing to avoid that interrogation, okay? So you want to be really careful if that's your bent. I love the fact that when Glenn and I leave a soccer game from one of our kids, or whether it's Joey or one of the younger ones, I'm like, oh, that was great, and I'm wondering how he's feeling, and I'm talking about it, and he has pinpointed everything along the way that could have been done better or done differently because of his logic smart, okay? It doesn't mean one is right or wrong. It's that there are different approaches in how we view things. But logic smart kids can be dangerous because they are curious and they want to know how things work. And so when you relate to logic smart kids, know that their security comes from helping them understand confusion and seeming contradictions. Alma doesn't understand when we're reading why suddenly in our English language something doesn't follow the rules of the phonograms, okay? Doesn't make any sense to her. And so that can actually stymie her because she doesn't understand it. Spiritually speaking, I would say the logic smart kids are the ones that we really want to watch in terms of their faith because their tendency is toward being satisfied with merely knowing God, but they also need to grow in the understanding of the heart's feelings and responses that aren't always black and white. And the greatest challenge, and I saw this with a nephew of mine who went away to college and entered into this higher level criticism of the gospel, that faith is possible even when we don't understand everything. And it's one of the reasons why I think it's really important as a school and as parents that we talk to our kids about God's nature, not only the part of him that we can relate to, but his incomprehensibility. That if we could comprehend God, he would be lower than we are. That he is an incomprehensible God, and that is okay because he is way, way beyond our ability, that we cannot logic God. Discipleship-wise, your really strong logic kids could be your justice police. They want rules to make sense, and they're going to apply them to everybody. They're going to struggle with grace and mercy, and they can easily grow intellectually prideful, okay? Now, it's your word smart, logic smart kids that are going to be your top students, okay? Those are the kids that will be your top students. They're your Judes. I'll mention him. I'll use my kids as grandkids. School's easy for Jude. He's word smart and logic smart, okay? School comes easy for him. That is not all kids, though, okay? Not all kids, and our parents need to know that just because their kids are not word smart or logic smart as leading strengths doesn't mean they don't have their smarts. And we're going to go into those other smarts after these first two. But I want you to be aware, too, as you think about it, who are your top students? And likely they will have both of these two smarts as leading smarts, okay? But we have a whole host of other kids who don't fit in that category. So we want to talk about them, too, and see how they work. But I want you to spend some time now in your group and think about yourself, your own family, and your students. And I'm going to just give you a few minutes to kind of identify and think about how these two smarts relate to your classroom.